does this show you? Volatility. What does this show you? Unpredictability. You go from $1.03 a can, $1.03 a pound, that's 3 cents a can. Now you're down to 2 cents a can. What does this show you? Inability to budget from a recycling processor's situation when you're moving from the high 30s to PET to about 12 cents today per pound. What does this show you? Today's price of corrugate is a record high in the world at nearly $300 per ton. But why? Yeah, how does a municipality predict and budget for recycling pricing? Same for ferrous scrap, although ferrous scrap, again, is on a tag up in recent months. But why? So why the volatility? First, China is reducing its impact on the marketplace. China no longer wants to be the manufacturing and factory of the world. This will affect California because if you want to know something about California, your recycling markets suck. If you want to go down the street a little bit, not 5 miles from here, go to a shopping mall in Emeryville, it was a recycled steel mill. If you want to go to a shopping mall in Pomona, California, it was a recycled newsprint mill. So you watch my talk on exports, because if your reliance on exports is to your benefit until recently. Look at that. That was a nice growth curve. I wish my business, I wish your program grew. Ooh, we're coming down. Ooh, we're dropping on exports. So, second, domestic recycling markets have not been faring so well. A good example is paper. Now, paper recycling collections stay pretty flat, around 50 million tons per year. Paper exports, following the other ones I showed you for plastics and metals, are tagging down. But remember, in America, we are reliant on 40% of our recycling market capacity being offshore. I'm not so sure that that's a good decision. And we see a situation, particularly in newsprint, where it's at 1/3 of the rate it was of production in North America as it was just 17 years ago. That's the recycled paper market has led to these companies. Now, all of them went into bankruptcy and came out except SP, which went totally belly up. Those in Northern California were shipping newsprint to the SP mill up near where I live, and that mill is being cut down today, just tearing it down. So we see bankruptcies, and we see numerous closures of recycling mills in the U.S. I can give you 2 or 3 more tables such as that. Another trouble spot is that while plastics recycling continues to move ahead, it is definitely stuck by the fact that the vast majority of plastics are made from 2 things, natural gas or oil. And so the pricing of plastics will always be, Nina, I hope you will allow me to use your slide. This is a more recycling slide. This is an important slide. It's busy, but just look at the gray. That's the price of hydrocarbons. That's the price of oil. And then look at the various plastic recycling prices, the colored marks. Notice how well they trail oil pricing. So with cheap shale and cheap oil right now, you're going to continue to see plastic pricing being weak. So what can we expect? We need to watch the global economy. That's what determines the pricing and the demand for recycling in this state. Our strong dollar is a negative. It's good or bad. If you're touring Europe, it's wonderful. If you're trying to sell materials to China, it's not good. This new economy situation is also how many of you buy from Amazon? Okay, you're hurting corrugate recycling tremendously. We go from 90%, 95% recovery of corrugate, very clean recovery, very clean boxes, little labels, at distribution and retail outlets, and then we go to your home. Now we've got this glued up, stuck up, labeled up little box, and some of the time it gets into the box. I don't think there's anybody in the room who's going to tell me that they get 75% corrugate recovery from households. So you go from a 95% recovery, all of a sudden you go down to about 75, and that is hurting corrugate recycling. Fascinating effect of e-commerce. Again, I'm saying that cheap hydrocarbons, the benefit of recycling, 95% of the energy in aluminum, to make aluminum is saved by recycling it, but when you have cheap energy, our benefits don't look so good. Finally, in terms of China, I think you're going to see these factors driving a situation where China, again, will not want to be the factory of the world and therefore will not want the recyclables off the Oakland Pier, won't want recyclables off the Long Beach, LA piers. So this is going to be a situation affecting you and your programs in the coming years. China is also pushing back. Again, it was called the Green Fence first, now it's called the Sword. They're pushing back and they no longer want your junk. Now this is a clean bale of mixed rigids. That's a nice looking bale, no film in it and everything else. But when it goes to this kind of facility to be sorted, so it can go through this coal-fired extruder, this is what China is going to say, no more, no more. So what can we expect? We're going to have to return. California had a very strong program, and I think you're going to have to return to local recycling market development as the foreign market continues on its downward slope. And you can ask me, what is the best metric to monitor, therefore? Capacity utilization is the best. Now you're going to say, what's capacity utilization? Say you live in a small California town and it has 3 restaurants and they're always, always, always busy. Well, that's full capacity utilization. Now a 4th restaurant comes in town and all of a sudden, they're only operating at 75% or so of capacity. And so what's really good is to watch, and we're seeing it, paper production capacity in the United States is over 95% today, and that's why the high prices. Steel capacity is moving towards about 80% of production capacity, and that's why we're also seeing better pricing. So if you really want to know the one metric that my firm watches, and that's capacity utilization. Now, I do have to ask a very personal and important question is, are there any lawyers in the crowd? Anyone? Well, my lawyer always tells me that I have to have a disclaimer, and there were no trans fats used in the production of this show. I'm open for questions. In the 80s, when my wife worked for then Governor Jerry Brown, and yes, Linda Ronstadt was a lot of fun. Anyway, she helped organize an organization. We were usually meeting in a library in El Cerrito, and that is NCRA.
Hey!
I started my magazines in Sacramento. So.
Wow, that's awesome. So we have
But I'm from Portland, and just come visit.
Just come visit.
Just visit, thanks.
Don't come to stay. All right, we have a question from Arthur.
Hey, Arthur.
We'd like to think that the recycling infrastructure for plastics is developing in California. Your numbers back
That's an excellent question. You're totally right. Oh, all right. Arthur asked, is the plastics recycling infrastructure in California increasing? And it is. You were an outbound for a long time. You also had a rap against you of tight industrial water regulations as well as high energy. But several very, very large PET and HDPE modern plants have been built in California. And so that would be a good example of the market development initiatives that are needed, and that's a good example. Thank you for bringing that up.
Great. Any other questions? Oh, Arthur's got another question.
The OCC company that makes 100% recycled finished goods, Australians, I think they are.
Yeah, Pratt Industries, yes. The question is there any chance of getting something like Pratt Industries just built the nation's largest new recycled paperboard mill in Indiana. Is there a chance? All of these are now being done with significant state governmental support, usually in terms of jobs, but significant. Hey.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see pricing for those programs going?
Where is pricing going was the question. That'll obviously come down from the highs that we're seeing of record corrugate, and ferrous is going to come back down. The general thinking is that if we can continue at about 3% economic growth in the United States that we'll have better, above historic average pricing for the next couple of years if we can do that, except for plastics, which will be confronted by competing against low shale oil and natural gas pricing. I'm sorry.
Trying to get at was rates for recycling programs.
Or like
What-
curbside rates?
In terms of,
Like curbside rates?
Yeah, so if all these programs are eating their shirts on low scrap values and they still have the collection.
what you're seeing is, and Waste Management, Republic Services, and others, the question is what's the impact on rates, are driving the cost down to the government, and you're going to absorb it in the per can charge will rise because of it, because the risk assignment has to unfortunately go to the consumer and not to the service provider, and we're seeing renegotiations of numerous contracts, and that's a natural tendency. I've been at this game over 45 years. That's a natural tendency. I've seen it numerous times.
One more.
One more, sir. Bill O'Toole asked an excellent question, and I'll expand it. What's the chances of India and Vietnam and others to replace China? It's already happening. If you look at the world's largest recycled paperboard producer, Nine Dragons, you know it as America Chung Nam as their buying agent. Nine Dragons is building 2 million tons per 2 million tons per year or more capacity in Vietnam. So I think that's an excellent question on Bill's part. You will see a shift to the next heavy labor availability country, and that will be Vietnam and India.
Well, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jerry. So glad you could make it.